I tried to catch a Dogman in my Jeep. Dear Scary Stories NYC. When I was a young man just coming of age, I was a crazy little so-and-so. I mean, just insane. I seemed to have a death wish, but I never noticed it myself at the time. I got myself a hand-me-down all-terrain vehicle from my equally insane brother when he joined the Marines, and I took to driving off-road for one summer like it was almost my job. I mean, I got very serious about never being serious, and in the middle of all that, I nearly got myself brained and drained and eaten for dinner by the biggest and meanest creature I hope I ever do see, and that would be the North American upright walking canid, which I know most of you all call a Dogman. You know, I remember it didn't start off like it was gonna be a weird day. It seemed like any other day in that lazy and hazy, super hot summer. My father was bugging me to get a job, but this would be a summer of playing around for me. I wouldn't start to make myself useful to the world until that summer was over. I guess I needed to get a lot of the wild man out of me in those warm months before settling down to the long, hard chore of being a man. Although technically I was of age and legally an adult, in my mind I was most definitely still a boy when this story took place. And I was a mischievous one too. I was always getting into trouble, but back in those days I got let off easy because there was this attitude that boys will be boys. Back then, that meant boys will steal cars for joyrides and boys will sneak into the movies for free and get caught every time, and things of that nature. It wasn't like I was involved in violence. Well, I mean, other than a few street fights. What kid doesn't get into garbage can throwing street fights a few times while growing up, though, am I right? Or, a few dozen. So, I took that 1984 Honda ATV, and I took off to Holly Oaks Off-Road Vehicle Park, right next to the Dixie Highway. The whole area has a lot of camping and off-roading spots, so you'd often find me in that general vicinity on most days. I was driving around on the dirt and so forth and having my usual good time when I got that sense that someone was watching me. It wouldn't go away, so I looked around, and that was the first time I saw him. At first I thought he was some kind of freak man. He was standing on the edge of the highway staring in at me, and he had the strangest body shape I ever saw on a human being. Then, he started walking toward me, and I started driving toward him. I had the chills all the time this was happening, as I had no idea who this guy was that I was driving over to see, and I had a really bad feeling about all of this. There was a point where I got close enough to see that guy more clearly, and I didn't like what I saw. At first, I was filled with fear, and my initial reaction was to drive away home. That was how ugly I thought this fellow was. You see, this wasn't really a man at all. I mean, sure, he walked like a man, more or less, but he did it with equipment unlike that which any man I've ever known has ever had. He wasn't wearing any clothing, for one thing. He didn't seem to need clothes, because, he wasn't a human. He was covered in fur. He was like an animal, but he walked upright, and his face didn't even appear human at all either. The mouth was different. The jaws were different. The ears, they stood up on top of its head. In fact, if you only saw that head, you would say this is some kind of a wolf or a wild dog. It's just that this wolf or primitive canine head was on the shoulders of a big hairy monster of a caveman type of creature. Well, it looked like a caveman on top at least. Its legs were not like those of any man I've witnessed yet. They look like devil legs, I ain't gonna lie to you. This big, broad-chested wrestler-looking guy was there, but he had a canine head, and he had devil legs. I saw that thing standing on the Dixie Highway, and like I told you, I was born with a bit of the devil in me, too. One devil saw the other one, and I drove off the off-road and back toward the Dixie Highway. I won't lie to you, my intentions were to catch up to that big old boy and bring him in. I intended nothing less than to have that Dogman as my pet, or to die trying. When the creature man saw me coming toward him, he took off running south on the highway which was to my right. The two of us went tearing down that blacktop, and we must have been doing close to 50 miles an hour as I skidded back and forth, trying to gain traction. That Dogman, at least in short bursts, seemed every bit as fast as my vehicle, and I knew then that this was not going to be an easy thing to accomplish. Looking back on it, I think I must have been delirious from the heat to have even wanted to try what I was doing. There was a weird feeling inside me as I skidded around that highway on that day. I felt like a million different future versions of me were riding along with me. I felt like there were so many different me's, and they were all taking note of what was happening. In the decades since this event, I have retold the story many times. Each time I think back on it, I'm aware of my former self being aware of my current self, as I do indeed travel back in time in my mind and relive the narrative, making sure I get as many of the details right as I can in each retelling. So, I chased that big hairy son down the highway, both of us flying all over that empty road. After some time, he made a left and ran into this RV park they have over there. Well, people went running in all directions as this 6 or 7 foot tall hairy monster from hell ran through, followed by a lunatic on an RV. That would be me. I admit, things were crazier back in those days, but this was far crazier than a usual Michigan evening, even for my generation. Now, they've got these bridges in that park, and the Dogman took off running across one of them. They're walking bridges, and it was just a little bit too small for me to seriously consider driving my Honda up onto there. I might have been able to fit, but it seemed too tight, and the last thing I wanted to do was get stuck on a bridge and become easy prey to the Dogman. Maybe Steve McQueen could have chased the Dogman onto that bridge, but I did not have the nerve. Watching that werewolf SOB to see where he would go when he got off the other side of the bridge, I still had plans to take the long way around the water and to catch up to that beast. I won't lie to you, I had a vision of keeping that giant critter as a pet. I wanted to build a big, caged-in habitat on my land, big enough for him to run around in. I wanted to treat him well and win his trust. I had plans for that Dogman. I wanted to study him on the one hand, but I wanted to keep him as my companion on the other. I used to know a guy that walked around with a big snake on his shoulders, and all the women were crazy for him. Imagine if I walk a Dogman around with me. That would be an even bigger chick magnet, am I right? Maybe not. Probably the women would have run screaming, but that was the way my mind worked back then. I wanted to risk my life like a lunatic half the time, and I wanted to impress the ladies the rest of the time. As I was calculating how I might catch up to the Dogman, a crowd of people, unhappy with the fact that I had chased a monster through their campground, started to catch up with me. Although I courted danger back then and I loved taking risks, I hated being held account for my wildness, so I sped off out of there while I still could. Most of those people looked like out-of-town campers. I hoped nobody there could identify me by name, and I just beat it for home. The way life went back then, I expected to get another chance to chase down that Michigan Dogman. I was certain that story wasn't over, but I was wrong. That would turn out to be the only time I ever got to see a Dogman in my entire life. Sometimes I sit on my back porch at night, wishing I had kept going, that I had kept chasing the monster on that evening while I still could. If I had known, I would never again encounter one of those rare beasts. I like to think I would have kept going, and I like to think that I would have succeeded in bringing that creature home with me to raise as a member of my family. When I think back on that day and night, I have to admit that I do so with great sorrow and unease, because as terrifying, as truly horrifying as the Dogman is to see with the naked eye, I know it still would have made for the best companion, and I know that with the Dogman at my side, nobody would have ever messed with me again. I know it's better that the Dogman remains free. I know that's better than it living in captivity. But I would have treated him well, and I would have been good to him. From now till my final day, I know I'll never stop thinking about the time that I tried to catch a Dogman in my Jeep. What's better than a Dogman story? That's easy. 2 Dogman stories. Which is why we're declaring this week Double Down Dogman Week. We're gonna have not 1, but 2 Dogman stories per day. One at 10 a.m. and the other at 7 p.m. That's 10 shows in 5 days, Monday, March 14th through Friday, March 18th, right here on Scary Stories NYC. Our executive producer is Dan D'Amico. The world will be inherited by the Miko. If you want to find a badass who is all man, look no further than our EP Dan. Please join us in thanking today's executive producer Dan D'Amico for making this episode possible. He receives lots of badass perks from us, including uncensored secret episodes and, coming later this week, an all-new 5-hour secret uncensored archive video available to mid or high tier channel members only. Here is international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to fill in the rest of the deets. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com. And that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.